ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ and ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. And good morning, good evening, wherever you are, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I am here with a very, very special broadcast or live stream on a breaking news, um, a really high end revelation by a very high ranking ex CIA official, which has really set the not just the overall Twitter stream discussion on Twitter alive, but has also set off many deep seated long issues which have been pending resolution and have brought them to fore. Today we are going to discuss the latest revelations by an ex CIA official, a very high ranking official whose name is John Kiriakou, regarding India's hand in Air India 182 bombing. Air India 182 was a flight which actually was bombed in 1985, in which 329 innocent civilians had died, 82 of them children, and 268 out of them Canadian citizens. Before 9/11, this was the biggest incident of aviation terrorism in human history. From the time that this incident happened, there have been so many questions. There have been court cases, inquiries, but in all the court cases, almost all the major accused got scot free. There were sham public inquiries by the Canadian establishment, which had some terms of reference which never allowed it to fix responsibility for the bombing, in spite of so much of evidence being available about the people who were involved in the bombing. We've had trail of money that has been tracked publicly with all the evidence available to the main financer of this particular terror act, which was traced to the Indian government. We've had CSIS investigators, the Canadian intelligence investigators who actually investigated this particular act of terrorism, whistleblow and share information that they had full evidence that Indian state was involved, or Indian agencies were involved in this act of terror. However, they had to suppress all that evidence because of the Canadian politicians deciding to give more priority to good trade relations with India versus letting the public know the truth. We've had unending number of witnesses, 5 to 6 first-hand witnesses who came to the court case and shared evidence against the main accused in the bombing, but all of them, in spite of that evidence, were let go of free, except one person who was given a very light sentence for unintentional killing. We've had not just the CSIS investigators, but also 22 congressmen from US Congress actually sign a letter to US government in year 2000 asking for India to be sanctioned as a state sponsor of terror for the bombing that it conducted of this flight. However, in spite of all this evidence, the public discourse has, or the public spotlight was never put on to this dastardly act and who the main conspirators were. Even today, the main conspirators live. We don't know, maybe some of them are not living, but they are scot free. Justice has still not been done. But in this long stream of evidence which has been building up about the hand of the Indian state in this dastardly terror act, we now have one new nail in that coffin. And that nail comes from nobody else. It doesn't come from a average Tom, Dick, and Harry, average person like me. It comes from none other than one of the higher ranking ex CIA officials. His name is John Kiriakou. Recently, last week, while giving an interview to Chris Hedges, Chris Hedges is another Pulitzer Award winning journalist. John revealed what was already an open secret, which is kind of an open talk in the intelligence circles, which is that the Indian agencies blew up this Boeing 747 in 1985, named as Kanishka. And that bombing was engineered by the Indian agencies, purportedly to defame and delegitimize the Sikh freedom struggle called Khalistan. So today we are going to go through these latest revelations, and I will not only walk you through these revelations, I'll also walk you through some of the other evidence that we have. So without further ado, let us listen to what John Kiriakou had to say. And I'm going to play his video up for you guys. Okay, so this was the interview he gave to Chris Hedges, and there are twice he brings up the name of the case of Kanishka or Air India 182 bombing. This is the first time that he talks about it. Let me play the video.
That carried out acts of terrorism against its own people. Look at Israel, that has carried out assassinations all over the world. We could even point the finger at the government of India, for that matter, for carrying out assassinations and terrorist attacks in Canada, blowing up a 747, no less. So really, the complaint that I have with this designation, this terrorism designation.
Let me play that out again.
That's a great example, but look at others. Look at let's say the Greek military junta, for example, that carried out acts of terrorism against its own people. Look at Israel, that has carried out assassinations all over the world. We could even point the finger at the government of India, for that matter, for carrying out assassinations and terrorist attacks in Canada, blowing up a 747, no less. So really, the complaint that I have.
Amazing. So this is John Kiriakou alleging that Indians were behind the Air India 182 bombing, the blowing up the 747 jet in Canada on the Canadian soil, killing total 329 innocent people, 82 of them children, and 268 out of them Canadian citizens. And it's kind of quite like, it's amazing how he talks about it, because in this interview he talks about Israel having committed crimes, he talks about Greek military junta, and then in that mix he puts in India right up there. And if you kind of understand a bit of body language, you have to see when he talks about India, he has this indignation when he says India. And then when he talks about blowing up an aircraft in Canada, look at the way his eyes lit up and the way he's surprised that how come this happened? How come this third world country come to a Western country and blow up a plane and get away with it? Let me play this out again for you. If you are watching it on the video that I have, just play it out again. See how he actually reacts when he talks about this terror act by Indian state.
Greek military junta, for example, that carried out acts of terrorism against its own people. Look at Israel, that has carried out assassinations all over the world. We could even point the finger at the government of India, for that matter, for carrying out assassinations and terrorist attacks in Canada, blowing up a 747, no less.
No less. 747, no less. Let me just, and this is now almost kind of more than halfway through the interview. He brings up India again without any hint or any kind of prompt from the interviewer. He basically brings up India again on his own. And let me play this out for you guys. This is the second time he talks about India in the interview.
Very poor planning. We could say the same thing about the Indians, in that, the Indians support their own Kashmiri separatist groups, extremist groups, and it's the Indians that blew up the 747 in Canada. It's the Indians that carry out hits or attempted hits against Sikh activists or Indian leftists or anti-Hindu nationalists in places like Canada or the UK. There's plenty of blame to go around.
Amazing. Let me play that again for you when he talks about, and here he is accusing India of not just Air India 182 bombing. He is accusing India of other murders that have recently been in the news in UK and in Canada. And he also talks about the attempted hits in US, for which we have a couple of Indian terrorists currently in US custody in New York. So let's talk about that again.
And it's the Indians that blew up the 747 in Canada. It's the Indians that carry out hits or attempted hits against Sikh activists or Indian leftists or anti-Hindu nationalists in places like Canada or the UK. There's plenty of blame to go around, and not to even begin to discuss what the CIA does on a daily basis.
Okay. Now, one thing I really find interesting is he lays very, very specific allegations against India, but he talks about other agencies as well. But like in there, he doesn't lay out any specific allegation. There's no specific allegation against CIA. He say, oh, CIA does this, Mossad does this, assassination, blah blah blah. But like he never laid out any particular incident, like being very specific. Then he talks about Greek military junta and other dictators and all doing it. But in case of India, he goes very, very specific. So I find it very interesting. And another thing I notice is like how when he talks about this, he talks about it as if like this is just common knowledge. Like nobody should be surprised. Like nobody in my world, that's what he's saying. Nobody in my world, in the intelligence world, is surprised. Oh, it's India. They've carried out the 747. We know it. We knew it all along. And that is exactly, and he's totally right. I totally agree with him because he is not the only one saying it. If he was a lone guy saying it, we would have said maybe he's gone mad. But we have two confirmed CC's investigators who have said this, and I'll walk you through that evidence. We have one CC's Asia Pacific bureau chief who has written so in a book, in a published book, Nest of Spies, that Indians were behind it. We have court evidence wherein we have all the main accused, the financier, having all his money being taken from the Indian government through millions of dollars of loan that he got from the Indian government. And then we have a sham public inquiry, which we know was given terms of reference that you are not going to investigate any government of India. You're not going to fix responsibility for the bombing. And then we have also the main accused, the financier of this entire operation, having deep linkages with India, having been welcomed by the Indian government, treated, given a red carpet. Unfortunately or fortunately, he's been murdered. And we'll talk about it. But let's talk about some of the other people. He's not the only one. We have other people saying the same stuff. So let me pull up some of the other claims on this. Okay, here you go. Here is this book by the CSIS bureau chief. And I'm going to just read verbatim from it, okay? This Nest of Spies. I think this was published around 2004. Juno Katsua. And this is what he says. He has a full one chapter devoted to Area 182. And I quote, Flight 182 isn't just a tragedy. It is also a Pandora's box with the leaden weight of Canada's entire governmental apparatus still sitting on the lid and trying to keep it shut. Concealed inside, apart from the murderers, is the dark history of India itself, in the form of steely-eyed agents bent on settling New Delhi's accounts and prepared to cross anybody's borders in order to do so. How would Canadians feel if it were known that India's agents provocateurs had pulled just one tiny thread in making this disaster come about? Or at best had known that it was going to happen and chosen to stand aside? What might Canadians do if they discover that our authorities had tolerated foreign interference that was bound to spill quantities of blood for no other reason than to ensure the continued prosperity of corporate interests and the untroubled afternoon teas of our diplomats? I think he's spot on when he kind of characterizes this incident, because we know through this is some of the paper cuttings that you're currently seeing. These are the news reports that immediately came out after the bombing, wherein CC, the RCMP, was leaking all the information they had about the Indian hand and their suspects being primarily the Indian consulate. Here is an excerpt, from the great investigative work that was done by two, I would say, very credible journalists. One from Globe and Mail, another from Toronto Star, and their account was based upon the disclosures by two CC's investigators who were actually involved in the investigation of this bombing. And I quote from the book, quote, "So convinced had CC's become of the Government of India connection that at one Air India task force meeting, a CC's agent had seriously suggested that if you really want to clear the incidents quickly, take vans down to the Indian High Commission and the consulates in Toronto and Vancouver, load up everybody and take them down for questioning. We know it and they know it that they are involved." Not just that, in this particular book, they actually laid out the entire conspiracy. This book was published in 1988, where they laid out that the main financier was Ripu Daman Malik, a quote unquote plant of India, who was given $2 million worth of credit line by the Indian government through its bank in Vancouver City. And that particular person was the main financier of these extremist element, or what I call foot soldiers, who were then trying to put a bomb laden baggage on the aircraft. All these people were named: Mr. Bagdi, Rayat, Ripudaman Malik in 1988 itself, in a book, a public book. But CSIS and RCMP slept for 16 years. They did nothing. Then year 2000, suddenly they wake up and they have to charge all these people who are named in this book. And they have to charge not because of some great investigative work, but they have to charge because there are witnesses who came out on their own. The prime witness being the girlfriend of Ripu Daman Malik, the Indian implant himself, who actually came to CC's herself as she could no longer answer her consciousness. And she revealed that, hey, in moments of weakness, this person, Ripu Daman Malik, confessed to me what his role was in this entire bombing operation. That he was the one who prepared these suitcases and hired these people to put these bags on this aircraft. And not just her, we had two other witnesses, Mr. A, Mr. B, who actually gave witness in the court firsthand that Ripu Daman Malik himself came and told them to put these bomb laden baggages on the aircraft. But Ripu Daman Malik goes scot free. Four accused people are accused in that case, all go scot free, except one guy who is given 5 years in the main trial for manslaughter, but in a related trial, 10 years, so let's say 15 years for manslaughter, which is not being part of the conspiracy, which basically is unintentional killing, that he prepared some equipment or bought some equipment which was eventually used in the bombs. So we never knew who the main conspirators were. All of these guys walked free. We never knew. We were told we will never know because the CC's agents already told us in their book that the Canadian government has already done a deal with the Indians that they are not going to name the Indian government, that they're going to bury their hand, and they don't want to destroy the diplomatic relations. They don't want to destroy the trade relations between India and Canada. Money is way, way more important than the blood of the innocents. So what if the Indian government, in its foolishness, did one act of terrorism? So the Canadian government fired 6 diplomats of India in 1986, and that's it. And then when the families cried for justice, people cried for justice, and the witnesses themselves came out. They ran a trial. All the evidence was there, but then the judge, after all the evidence was presented, first 10 witnesses, the judge very conveniently dismissed everything as undeniable, not worth of, not kind of conclusive enough, and everybody walked free except one guy for manslaughter. And then, under pressure from the public, the Canadian government instilled an inquiry. People were given a false impression that this public inquiry will be something like a truth commission where all the information will be shared. But no, it was a clever ploy. That inquiry had actually forbidden the commissioner from fixing responsibility for the bombing. He was specifically forbidden from going into any evidence of any foreign government involvement, especially the Indian government involvement. He was only to look after things like airport security, lack of coordination between RCMP and CSIS, and what can we do better in terms of security coordination between our agencies, blah blah blah, but nothing about the conspiracy or who is responsible for the bombing. The excuse that the government gave for these kind of terms of reference was, they said, we didn't want to jeopardize our chances of litigation, because this might go to, we might, investigation is still open, we might go to trial tomorrow, so we didn't, already some accused got off, so we didn't want to jeopardize chances of future litigation. That was the excuse given to give these kind of, for very restrictive terms of reference. So on paper, the RCMP still has this investigation I call open, but the reality is that they are not running it. It is already buried. RCMP cannot investigate a hostile act by a foreign actor. CSIS has that, all that intelligence. It is a political element which has to let go, but the political element is already compromised. They have already agreed with India to hide their hand, and this is exactly what today John Kiriakou exposed. John Kiriakou today came on a YouTube social media channel and exposed the fact that we know in the intelligence circles who was behind this, which is the Indians. The Indians blew this plane up. Let's play it out again. And I have certain listeners here, very interesting listeners. I see Marshall here. I don't know, Marshall, if you're going to take speakers, but feel free to take speaker. I'm almost at the end of my main speech. I would love to kind of get more views on what people think about these latest revelations. And I'm sending you guys speaker. But what is really important is, like, what people need to understand is that why did the Indian government do it? Like, some of you might have this question, like, why did the Indian government blew up a 747? What would they gain? They gained a lot, because in 1984 the Indian government conducted a genocide of the Sikh minority. Sikhs, who are 2% of the Indian population, but are a sizable, fifth largest religion in the world, were demanding some political rights within the Indian setup, which the Indian government didn't want to give. So it ended up conducting a military operation against their holiest place of worship, called Darbar Sahib in Amritsar, and then also conducted a genocide of 35,000 innocent Sikhs on the streets of national capital of India and across 119 other cities. So they were that had caused the Sikhs in India as well as in diaspora to rally together for a cause of separatism, to get separate from India and have an independent state. And that movement was called Khalistan movement, and it got a lot of sympathy around the world. And so the Indian state and Indian agencies were under a lot of pressure. And what better way to come out of that pressure than actually conduct a terror attack and then blame the Sikhs for it? And that's what they did. They got in touch with their Canadian friends and said, hey, we just want to go and bomb this one particular aircraft. Do you mind looking the other way? And I don't know whether they looked the other way at the time of planning, but they definitely looked the other way, the Canadian intelligence, after the bombing was done, even after knowing that the Indians are behind it. So the Indians blew up this plane, and then overnight, the whole story the world over was changed. The Sikhs, from being victims of state terrorism, were now portrayed as these extremist religious fanatics who are out for the blood of the innocents. And the Indian government flipped that story. And overnight, they used this particular incident to label an entire community as fanatic, as extremist. They killed their own people to create this kind of an impression, and then blamed their own people, another group of people, under their own rule as the ones who are fanatic and extremist. An entire community, an entire religion, millions of people were blamed. I have met many Canadians, diaspora Sikhs, who were young at that point in time. They were in schools. They got this stigma against their name, called a terrorist. People have called me up and shared the experiences of what experience they had growing up as a young Sikh in Canadian schools post this particular terror attack. People would call them terrorists right there in their face. A whole community defamed for what? For nothing, for basically demanding their own rights. And the people who did the act are the ones who were doing the blaming. But as they say, the truth is hard to hide. The mountain of evidence from whistleblowers, from court documents, from leaks, from conscientious objectors or whistleblowers like John Kiriakou is mounting up. This is on the level of evidence that we have now, which questions and clearly points at the hand of the Indian government, deserves an answer. The Canadian government will not be able to escape for too long. Very soon, a mainstream media outlet will pick up this story. This story will be picked up. As I say, the ghost of Air India 182 won't die, won't go away until the public is told the full truth. Okay. With that, I have Max Steele, whose hand is up. Max Steele, how are you? Wajh Khalsa, Wajh Fateh.
Hanji Baji, Waheguru Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Hanji Baji, yeah, I mean, it's a good thing that, right, that this has come out. But I think the Canadian government is repeating the same story all over again. Like, they killed Hardeep Singh Nijjar, right? And the Canadian government, they went ahead and buried it again. I think this is the modus operandi. This is just how, because basically this Canadian state is hands in glove with India. And even with this Air India bombing, they actually probably knew beforehand that this was going to happen. And they just let it happen. So I personally, I don't know what's going to come of it or how far this is going to go. Because this Canadian government, they're hell-bent on burying it and just moving forward with their so-called trade relationship with India. And I mean, it's a good thing it's coming. I mean, I think the reason it's more credible is because it's coming from a CIA agent. If it was coming out of a Canadian resource or a security intelligence member, it would not have been as credible as it is now. But I think we're just going to have to wait to see, right, how far this goes, because Canada is going to do whatever they can to bury it and just going to cover it up with misinformation.
Yeah, Max, I kind of agree with you. And it's very unfortunate I say it. But I was honestly, like, when I was investigating this, I started reading the court documents and the commission reports and all the incidents that happened prior to the bombing. It was clear to me that the Canadian elements in Canadian government definitely knew about what's going on. I was not actually, and I'll claim like I'm guilty of it. I didn't talk about that evidence much because in my heart I thought that can't be true. Like, the Canadian government can't be looking the other way when they were planning. Maybe they messed up post the event, but honestly, if you look at the testimony from Mr. Bartleman, I think I've forgotten his first name. He's on record that he had conclusive evidence before the bombing that this is going to happen, and he went with that piece of evidence, that wiretap of some consulates, India's consulate, to the RCMP officer in charge of the ops room on that day, and he was basically told to shut up and run away. And when he gave the testimony in commission, basically the Canadian government went after him, saying he's lying. And Mr. Bartleman is not an ordinary guy. I think he rose to be a premier of a state. And so there's all this kind of I think and you're right. I think we shouldn't expect anything out of the Canadian government. They are now stuck in this. They have done the deal with the devil. And but I hope for the sake of Canada, like, how does Canada recover from this? Like, the Indian state indulged in that terror attack, and now it is killing citizens. What of Canada? We have, I think Kiriakou now basically say that the Indians were involved behind that murder of Sardar Hardeep Singh Nijjar, which is now a publicly known fact. Like, nobody even questions that. And look, we have the Prime Minister of Canada doing trade deals with India after that, and then kind of just telling his own people, "Oh, no, we are so poor. Canadians, we are so poor. So what? If a brown Canadian has been killed, it is some kind of a foreign dispute. We can keep that on the side and we can deal with the Indians and they'll be nice with us. And now suddenly we'll have rivers of dollars coming our way." That's the kind of, I don't know, like, it's just beyond me, like, what's going on with Canada. But sorry, Marshall, go ahead. Thanks for coming and joining, Marshall. But I don't know how you feel about it. Like, as I am an immigrant American, a Sikh immigrant to America. Max is probably an immigrant Sikh to Canada. But I don't know how you feel about it once you know all this story. You are a white Canadian, probably born in Canada. Like, how do you feel? Like, what's going on?
it's crazy, right? It's exactly what Max said. It's the Canadian government knows about this, has always known about it. I said it to you, Harji, too, in our conversations. There's no doubt the Canadian government knew about this from the beginning. I think you're right, and they knew about it before it actually went down, and they kind of let it happen. I don't see how anybody looking at all the evidence can conclude anything else at all. And it was something else to hear John Kiriakou just drop that casually drop that as if it was common knowledge. And the guy, he's known for telling the truth. That's what he gets in trouble for, not for lying. He gets in trouble for telling the truth. So he just drops what he knows casually, but everybody knows it. So as a Canadian citizen, it bothers me and it's not just India, right? It's the last few years, it's become clearer and clearer. We're in bed with China. We're in bed with Iran. We got terrorists running all over the place. We got, communist Chinese running police stations here. Apparently, they've taken over entire ridings where nobody can elect anybody without it being a CCP, at least adjacent. And, none of us think it's adjacent. We all think they're CCP at this point. So, India was kind of the first. Our governments, and it's not just the liberals, it's the conservatives as well. That is also clear. They had their hand in covering up India. They had their hand in covering up China. And they make a big deal about it now. But who can trust them that if they get elected instead of the liberals, that they're going to come in and do something about it? I don't think they will. I don't think anything's ever going to be done about Air India. I think the entire Canadian political landscape needs to be totally disrupted. It needs this filth that's going back for years now. It needs to stop. And it's I agree with what you say. I try not to be too superstitious or whatever about it, but the ghosts of Air India are not going to go away until there is some justice. And it's time for that justice to come out. It's not going to happen in our current political system. Something's wrong with this country. Maybe we need the outside money that badly, but our governments, our political parties are uninterested in doing the right thing. So that's what I think about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and you're so right. I think it's just it probably has to come from outside, and I don't know what. Well, let's talk technically about this interview, like the way I have listened to this whole interview of John, but also for audiences who don't know John. John is ex-CIA official. On papers. He served God knows how much. He's still serving. Nobody knows, but on papers he served from 1990 till 2004. He was their chief of counterterrorism in Pakistan post 9/11. Probably one of the most important positions and you could hold in CIA at that point in time post 9/11. He was the one who kind of became a whistleblower because he brought to the attention of the government he spoke about against waterboarding, and he called it torture. So he was a bit of a conscientious objector where he basically called it torture, and while he himself did not do it, he called it out. So the government obviously didn't like him for that, but it gained him a lot of respect worldwide. I think people listen to John today for a guy who does what is right, and so I think his word carries a lot of credibility. What the Indians are going to do now on their propaganda machine probably is to now wait and come out, and they'll not kind of dispute his facts. They will try to dispute him and his credibility. That's going to happen, but there's no going back from here. This is too high a level an allegation. They can't just right now there is dead silence. While we are blaming Canada, honestly, in all this, imagine India has 1.5 billion people. Its diaspora is so educated. People getting into the CEO positions. They know this now. They've seen the evidence. They understand it. But like there is not a single mainstream news channel in India which today is questioning its government that, hey, there are these people saying this. What answer do you have? They don't even ask a question, which actually tells you that India is not a democracy. All these foolhardy impressions that people carry that India is some kind of a democracy is is, I would say, like, is beyond me, because look at it, like, not a even a question can be asked by their news channels to the government. Any news channel in India which decides to pick this story or even ask government this question, they won't be remain there tomorrow. They won't see next day. It will be off airs. And so the Indian regime is a very, very authoritarian regime, way worse than Soviet Union. And the evidence is in front of you. You will see the Indian media will keep quiet on this. And then their IT cell and the people that they have hired in the West, people like Terry Molosky. Terry Molosky is actually a CBC, quote unquote, a TV anchor. He appointed himself, or and has announced himself as this expert on Air India 1 and 2 bombing. But very conveniently, he will never pick up any piece of information or evidence which actually indicts the Indian government. He very conveniently, he knows that people don't have the memory or the patience to read these lengthy court documents, to read these lengthy commission reports. Who's going to go and read all that? So hey, I am this TV anchor, so they'll believe what I say, so I'll pick up these selective pieces of information. Look, this guy who was charged, Talvinder Parmar, he was the terrorist, he was the murderer. But he will very conveniently hide that there are also two CC agents who are claiming that, hey, it was the Indian government who was behind it. So this is called disinformation, like, or misinformation, I call it, because you are not kind of technically lying, though he's lying also in many cases, and I'll point out when he lies. But you share selective information to build a fake narrative. And so he will hide all these pieces of information he has been hiding all the while, under a false belief that nobody from the Sikh community will come and show this evidence to the people. Sikhs, these are just, normal, average, blue-collared work people who have no idea, what's going on in the world. But he's mistaken. He's sadly mistaken. He's going to lose his credibility. And I can tell you today, he's going to die a very lonely man, because his own kids will know. I've known that he has family. They will know what their father did all throughout his life, basically hide the murderers of 329 people. So that's why I call, like, this story is as much about these victims, as much about what I call the scum of the earth. People like Terry Molosky, who kind of, for just a couple of dollars, will actually betray their own country, Canada, and then will try to hide. They're way worse, I will tell you, than the people who actually put the bomb on the plane. Way worse, because these guys are smart enough to know what's going on, and they're deliberately doing it for their pecuniary benefit. They're trying to shield the Indian government. You will see Terry Molosky will never ever objectively talk about all the evidence that is out there against the Indian government. And he's going to come out, if he comes out now, if he dares to come out, and he'll try to character assassinate John Kiriakou. You watch it. I'm giving to you here. You see, either he'll remain quiet on this, or he'll come out and try to assassinate his. He will never demand that, hey, Canadian government, can you please answer? Why is this high-ranking CIA official saying this? Never, ever. So maybe that's what his right punishment is. That's how he will. Sorry, I'm getting my phone call. But yeah, Amsing has requested. Amsing is here. But I'm curious, like, I'm curious, Amsing, how do you take when this news came out, when you saw this interview? What was your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that it was surprising. It kind of came out of nowhere, didn't it? Though the understanding has always been there. There are other intelligence officials in the past from Canada that have, made clear what their suspicions, not even suspicions, right? What their kind of conclusions are about what has occurred, how India has sponsored that act of terror that occurred. Just a couple of thoughts that I had from listening to the entire interview. The first is that he opens the interview by discussing the definition of terrorism, right? And how, for some reason, it gets applied to Iran, but not, any other state, when terrorism really is defined as a an act of terror or some action to instill terror in a population for political purposes. And he sees no reason why, states should not be given the same label. And the interviewer then asks him, can you help us understand the context around Iran as a state sponsor of terror? What other examples can you offer the audience, to just have a comparison, right? And he gives multiple examples, and then he gets to India, and yeah, I mean, you've probably discussed a lot about what he said about the bombing of Air India, but I think it's also interesting to note when he mentions Israel as a sponsor of terror and their targeted assassinations of dissidents like the leaders of Hamas and other bad actors that are perceived by states and those acting against their interests. He basically says that the reason Israel does it is to take out the leaders of their opposition so that those that come in place of it are more rigid, and easier to assassinate politically, right? And to garner support around in attacking. And if you look at what's happened with the Shahidi of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, you have the opposite, right? You have the opposite outcome, which, I think all Sikhs worldwide can be pretty proud of. SFJ's response in carrying on what is a completely non-violent movement that is democratic in nature. It is not radical, right? You don't have replacement leadership of Hardeep Singh Nijjar that's more rigidized, right? In fact, they're harder to critique politically, and and the Sikh diaspora seems to consolidate around those efforts. And you see the WSO and, just the general Canadian American Sikh population, rallying behind the cause in a way that is not radicalized. So it's just really sad for India, right? Where, Israel has been able to
but I don't find a single, I think, honestly, I don't find a single example where America is blowing up its own plane and we have so much evidence.
Right. I mean, those are false flags.
Okay, so assassination is
about the U.S. assassinating.
That's fine. I'm saying,
and how in 1975 the president signed an executive order banning the CIA from going around the world assassinating people.
I'm saying I have no issue if India is going around and assassinating its enemies. Okay, every country does it, but I will have which country? Give me one example. I don't even have North Korea on this list, which is blowing up its own 329 people, 700 actually, if the other plane had also blown up. 700 people, and what is the aim? 700 of own people, not technically they were Canadian, but blowing them up to blame another group of their own people, whom India is saying are our citizens, and they are so happy within us. The Sikhs are Indians, they are really happy with us. This kind of evil, honestly, this is evil. It is evil beyond you can think of. I have not seen. If I see an evidence, I would blame that country. But I don't count like Israel going and killing a Hamas leader is way different than Israel coming and killing, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who is a civilian doing a referendum, whom India is saying they are really happy with us. Or India blowing up its own plane. Maybe Israel has blown up its own plane, but if that evidence comes, I'll believe it. But right now, we know India has blown up its own plane with 260. And to add to this is this irony that 268 out of these 329 people were technically Canadians. And it also brought out like this, I won't call it systemic, but like there is an element of racism. Like you can't hide behind it. And I don't blame Canada for it, but the fact is it is there. The Canadian Prime Minister I am told the Canadian Prime Minister called up the Indian Prime Minister and consoled him for the loss. This aircraft took off from Canada. 80% of the people on the board were Canadian citizens. Indian Prime Minister has to call up the Canadian PM condoling him, but the Canadian PM calling up the Indian PM. And it took 20 years for any Canadian Prime Minister to even show up on the memorial of the victims of Air India 182. 20 years. Let's just play out a thought experiment. If all of these people were white, would we have seen the same results? Marshall can answer that. Marshall, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I meant to hit the 100%, 100% emoji, not the hand emoji. I'm not even sure if this is working. I'm driving. Kim's driving right now, so I'm not sure if I'm coming through or not.
No, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I didn't mean to put my hand up, but I totally agree with that. If this was a bunch of white Canadians, this would be a done deal. People would be in jail, right? It'd be done. It's because they're brown. It's because they were brown. So that's another kind of shocking thing that I've only come to terms with my country in the last few years. I'm like, whoa, racism runs deep here, and it's systemic, right? It's systemic. So I don't know. Again, I don't know what to do with that kind of thing. It's ridiculous. And I wanted to say something too on Terry Milewski. Keep in mind, right, when you're proposing that he might be paid by the government of India, it's a possibility. I totally acknowledge that. But keep in mind, and non-Canadians don't really understand this, how the CBC is linked with the federal government. It's Canada's national broadcaster. It's supported by government money. So they will run interference stories to cover up things at behest of the government. So let's do that. So Milewski gets plenty of compensation for doing what he does, just from his career on CBC. These are specifically chosen individuals that get the big jobs there, and they get access to government. That's part of it. They look like but there very likely is interference run in order to cover up the government. If you watch CTV, their political department, it's totally different than CBC. They'll ask the right questions. We want to inform people. CBC pretends to, but it doesn't. So it is very much the mouthpiece of the federal government, at least as far as politics and major incidents like this go. So, that's important to keep in mind with Terry. And the CBC is also very very underhanded about saying exactly how much it pays its news teams. They say one salary, but then some other group will find out, well, then there's plus bonuses and plus this and plus that. So it ends up being like, 10 times what we're told. Literally, actually, maybe 10 times in the case I'm thinking of. That's on Milewski in this case. But there's that to keep in mind too, right? Is Milewski probably doesn't need any kind of carrot from the Indian government because he gets it plenty just from the CBC. But yeah, to your point that you were saying, there is definitely an element of Canada doesn't care because this involves brown people. And I think there's a bit of a quid pro in that, 6R, it looks to me like 6R encouraged to immigrate to Canada and have been for a long time. And I think maybe that's part of it too. There's this kind of deal where, you come over here and do what you want, but don't expect the same kind of justice, and figure it out while you're over here kind of thing. And it's brutal to say out loud because it does involve life. But I think there is a bit of that quid pro going on as well.
Yeah. No, absolutely, Marshall. And, I'm quite brave of you and quite kind of honest you for admitting that. I actually, when I was talking about Terry, it was in my mind, and I'm glad you brought it up that it was in my mind that, hey, he could very well actually be paid by CCs or the Canadian government. And he could very well be doing all this on behalf of the Canadian government because it's also in their interest to keep the status quo. Because if you look at the John C. Major so-called public inquiry, okay, and which is touted by this tout Miluski. Oh, we have this inquiry, sitting, Supreme Court judge, and he is basically proven beyond doubt. But when you read the terms of reference, he's forbidden from fixing the responsibility for the bombing. He's forbidden from naming or investigating into the main conspiracy or investigating anything into the foreign government hand. But still, John C. Major writes up this whole thing, which makes you, if you read it, there are certain elements of it which will make you feel as if, these Khalistani militants did it. So you can come away with that impression. So the report is also written very, very, I would say, shrewdly by the Canadian establishment. Same you can see in the court document. So it's like the court document, the whole case, if you read the court's judgment, it's available 182 pages. Nowadays, AI is available. You can go and read it. There is a witness. I have never read, look, I am not an expert, but you read that and there's a witness saying, Ripudaman Malik came and asked me to put this baggage with something on the aircraft. Then another guy comes and says he tried the same thing with me and he offered me money. The girlfriend of Ripudaman Malik is saying he confessed to me that he is the one who bombed the aircraft and then these are the people he used. This is how he booked tickets. So she lays out the whole thing. And the judge says all of them are non-credible because the girlfriend had a tiff with the lover, and then these two people who are saying they also had some grudge with Ripudaman Malik. So tell me, man, like, when was the last time you had a grudge with somebody and you accused them of bombing an aircraft? And then the judge dismisses all that in all kind of stupid logic. It's so evident. You read it. And then he says, very conveniently, that in one line he enters in that judgment. One line. You have to read that judgment. In that whole judgment, there is no talk of what is the evidence against Talvinder Singh Parmar, because Talvinder Singh Parmar is already dead. He lets go of all the accused. Talvinder Singh Parmar is a dead man. He can't be tried. Then he says, but we all agree that Talvinder Parmar was the main conspirator. He adds that one line without context, without any discussion of evidence. And on whose behalf was he doing it? Like, I am amazed. Like, it really puts a question mark even on the judicial system, the entire setup of Canada. The judges are compromised. The Supreme Court, judges are compromised. Your CCs is compromised. Your RCMP is compromised. What else? What else these CC investigators has to do? They had to come out and leak it to Globe and Mail. And there's also a secret.
Even now, right, RG, like, we had the guy in charge of the RCMP. This is last month. The guy in charge of the RCMP is like, oh, we have no evidence before us that leads us to believe that foreign entities are interfering in, foreign governments are interfering in Canada anymore. Flat out says that in front of everybody, right? And everybody loses their minds because everybody knows that's not true. So, the RCMP is compromised. If, infiltration compromised, maybe not, but they're certainly compromised in what they're willing to tell us and what they're willing to admit to. So, again, this is out in the open at this point. It's the age of the internet. We're all seeing it in real time. So how much more could they have got away with, 40 years ago when this went all down, or 20 years ago when the trial actually was? If they're this bad now, and, it's like, all these people are old now, right? They're all getting up, above 60. So they're not even with the times. They don't even seem to realize that what they say gets broadcast within 5 minutes to everybody who cares about it in the whole world. So they're still just saying dumb stuff. And then we've got some sharp journalists finally on the case who press them and say, are you saying what I think you're saying? And they nail them down and they make them say it. And then, a week later, and this is the weird thing though, right, is C6 comes out and says, well, we don't see evidence that foreign interference and transnational repression has stopped. And we see evidence that foreign governments are still oppressing Canadians. So then the RCMP goes, I don't know what to say. And that's just the RCMP. There is craziness going on in Canada with police forces all over this country. So, it's not even a might, Archie. It is they are. And even if the being compromised is only, they're morally compromised, so they don't tell us the truth, they're freaking compromised. And they're compromised over what is happening in real time on Canadian soil, and they're not even trying to hide it. And when they get outed and nailed by the press, nobody says anything. Our prime minister, says things to make Canadians proud and forget about it. But nobody is forgetting. That's the other thing. Everybody is none of us are forgetting about it. Everybody remembers it. There's just nothing any of us can do. And it's a nuthouse.
Yeah, and you bring up this guy, I think what Marshall was talking about. I'll just explain that to people because there was a background noise when you were speaking. Marshall was talking about this RCMP commissioner who last year did actually a press conference in which he basically came with another lady officer and said, oh, there's so much of crime, transnational crime going on. Indian consulates are running these rackets like the criminal and arson, that they're involved in everything. And then just after 11 months after that, he's coming and saying, oh, we have no evidence of the Indian state being involved. The only thing changed between these two cases was the government of Canada. So to me, now the impression is that the government of Canada has so much of undue influence on RCMP that the RCMP commissioner can sing whatever tone his political masters tell him to sing. Like, what does this say about RCMP as an organization? Like, what credibility does it carry? And it's the same guy who was sitting in this press conference last year, okay, was singing and saying today, denying all that I said. So we have no evidence, okay? And last year he was saying, I am sharing all this information because I want to disrupt it. It is so bad. I want to disrupt this from happening. I ideally should not be talking about it. And now he's on Canadian national TV to CBC saying, we just have no evidence of in any foreign government involved in this. But honestly, like, while RCMP might be compromised, the fact is that these kind of things are beyond RCMP's pay grade. RCMP is not supposed to handle foreign hostile actors on Canadian soil. The job is with the Canadian security establishment at a national level. It is CSIS. It is whosoever is part of the military. Because what has happened in Kanishka was not a criminal act. It was a hostile country doing cross-national state terrorism on Canadian soil. You don't handle state terrorism through RCMP and through court cases. So this whole talk in the Hardeep Singh Nijjar case, we are going to run a case, and then the Canadian government is saying Indian government should cooperate with us. Why would Indian government cooperate with you? Tell me. They came and killed your citizen. What is this like? What is this talk about? They should cooperate, and then basically they should, we will hold them accountable. Accountable for what? Like they have influence in your country, and they are exercising that muscle. They're not going to stop. So the only way you can make them stop is make them feel the same pain that they're making you feel. Double the pain that they make you feel, which is run covert intelligence operations in India. Shake up the Indian government from within. Or if you can't do that, then you send your army to do military coercion. You can't do neither of them, and you are basically selling this cock and bull story. We need cooperation from India, as if India is going to give you cooperation. And we have, like, in a newspaper, there's a journalist who said that Ajit Doval told them in their face, even if you give us all the evidence, we are never going to admit it. Go. Take a hike.
Well, again, I feel like Kiriakou is also telling us that part of the reason that these state sponsors of terror carry out assassinations is to radicalize those that they're targeting, right? And in Canada, the attempt is to paint Sikhs as radicals, right? India's failed pretty miserably, right? Which is why the Canadian state has nothing to cooperate with the Indian state over, right? If anything, like you're saying, they're out. that it makes no sense for Canada to continue to accommodate India within domestically, right? When they can't ensure the security of those that continue to be targeted. When there's no reason to target completely law-abiding, dissident citizens. And I just wanted to concur again with what you had said about, none of these other state sponsors of terror have ever carried out something of the nature that India did. And I think, Kiriakou does express that. There's other things that, the U.S., Israel, I think he even mentions Pakistan, have done, but nothing compares in nature for sure.
Yeah, and whatever this Canadian government right now should be doing, they should be actually fully backing the separatism movement within India. That's the way you handle India. You don't go and do trade deals with your enemy who is out there. India is not in Canada. India did not kill Hardeep Singh Nijjar to just come after sex. India basically showed Canada its muscle within Canada. It is telling Canadians, we own you. We can do this and we'll make you gulp it, even if you don't want to. Okay, that's what India is doing. It's a question of Canadian sovereignty. It is not a question of some here Canadian come and they've been sold this bull. Oh, these are foreign disputes. These are no longer foreign disputes. Nobody's living on an island. Okay, you can pack up every single Sikh and throw him in the Atlantic Ocean. This is not going to go away. India will come after you, and India is not going to let you be the way you are. So you better acknowledge that India is fighting a war with you since 1985. And don't be asleep on the job, Carney or whoever that guy is. But like the Indians openly boast here that Carney is their man, that he's financially compromised. He has business interest. I don't know how true that is, but maybe that's another topic. But anyways, we have a Simran just dropped off. I think she was here after quite a long period of time. I have not listened to her. Simran, take the mic if you can. I would love to hear from you.
Take the mic. I'm going to be stepping down. Thank you.
Okay, got it. Well, let me invite a couple of more speakers if they can come. Yeah, Simran, can you hear me? Okay, yeah, Simran, you have anything to add to this? Like, what was your feeling? I know you have been tracking this Air India 182 as well, and what do you feel about what John just revealed?
Hey, sorry. So, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Yeah, John, that was crazy. Like you guys are saying, it's so casual. He's very hands in the air about it. So, I thought that was interesting, and I came mostly to listen because you have a really coherent narrative and everything memorized. So it's a good refresher. I also wanted to say kudos to you, Harjeet. Good job for not letting this go, because a lot of people are not talking about this still, even though the narrative has evolved so much, but people are still very afraid to take on this discussion. So kudos to you, and yeah, thanks for not letting it go. But yeah, John's stuff was excellent. Like, I was just sitting there staring out my window, like, how could he say that so casually? So yeah, it's really great. We have significant speakers like Gurmeet Singh Aulik, but since that, there's been such a big gap until some of your threads and videos. So I would hope that people just start talking about it. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was, did you get I sent you a message about that episode 99? Like that Brian McAndrew, after he released Soft Target, he did media, like video media, and it was on a TV show. So you don't have to do it now, but it would be great if we could find that recording, because it's been pulled off air and it's not available. And yeah, so that's our next step, is just filling in the gaps of the timeline, knowing that all of this information was always available. And yes, there were some failures, because you can't explain Ganeshka in just one go. Like, even you guys were talking about Parmar and stuff. Like, he had a video where he outwardly just denied it. Oh, and then also I was going to say that point about Terry Milowski. Like, Terry got fired from CBC, from what I understand. So his credibility kind of got shot in the CBC world too. I don't know if they just burned him after a while. And so, yeah, other than that, this is great. It's just...
Hello, Sasrikal. How are you guys doing?
ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਲਾਲੀ ਭਾਜੀ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੀ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਹੈ what do you think about
hello to Cohen and everybody else and SK ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਕੀ ਹਾਲ ਹੈ
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ
ਹਾਂਜੀ that's like this that thing hits a bullseye the ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ the 1,000 yards right with 6.5 feet more right it's like that guy did a bullseye shot at India and ਸਾਰੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ Hindus are like a shot with it, right? With that, like he said that it was done by India. Sorry, why would you call
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਹਾਂ ਡਾਕੂ ਜੀ ਜਸਟ 1 ਸੈਕ ਲਾਲੀ ਭਾਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਖਤਮ ਕਰ ਲੈਣ ਤੋਂ ਗੱਲ ਫਿਰ
ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਬੋਲਸਾ ਹਿੱਟ ਕਰਤੀ ਉਹਨੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਫਿਨਿਸ਼ ਕਰਤਾ he just hit right there ਹਨਾ
And he mentioned it twice. He made sure later on in the video he mentioned like what they did to Sikhs and stuff. Sikhs. I don't know why I'm saying Sikhs because if there's white people listening. But
oh yes, that he did already.
He dropped it twice. He made the first 747 comment. Then near the end he did that other one. So
that was
clearly
so
wanted to drive
badass.
that point home.
Yeah. And none of the ex-counts made a video about it. They're all silent about it. You know.
I think we're going to see a lot of people, even in our community, start having to readdress their narrative on this, or like their lack of, like why they haven't spoken on it, and like have to deeply think about, you know, how to go ahead and start just talking about it.
I do want to talk about, and before I go there, I'll take Daku because Daku wants to say something, but I want to put one point to you guys and to see your reaction. Dakuji, go ahead. Dakuji, you wanted to say something? Okay, while we wait for him to speak. Okay. Vaji Khalsa, Vaji Fateh. I'm going to invite, I see Dharma is out there. Yeah, this is what I wanted to really raise this point, okay? Because Dharma is here. Dharma, I think, is a Malayali. And I don't know whether she's Christian. I don't know what religion she or he formed or they kind of follow. But Akaliji, please take the speaker. I see Coin also in the listeners. But you know, one thing that I'm really amazed by Simran is like all this evidence is out there. Now we have the CIA guy speak about it, okay? He's not a nobody. But like, where are all these Indians? Like, there's not a single Hindu, not a single Indian who's talking about this and questioning their government. 1.5 billion Hindus. 1.5 billion. What a shame, man. What a shame. Not a single guy.
No one's pushed back on it yet. It only came out, 5 or 6 days ago, but I still find it very strange.
Like, Simran, even before that, there was enough evidence. Like, we had CC agents, we had Juno Katsua's allegations, we had the sham.
About 3-4 years ago, read the whole story, all the stuff I read about it. You know, you speak about 3-4 years ago, right?
Yeah, but not a single Indian, not a single Indian media channel, not a single, like, and these are like their own people. Like, you can accuse me of being a anti-Indian regime, but I'm not anti-Indian people. I feel the pain of those people who got killed. 329 innocent civilians, 329, 82 children. You know how many elderly killed for no reason, but just to frame another full entire community and defame them and dehumanize them and portray them as terrorists, whom Indian state is claiming they are their own citizens. Oh, they are so happy with us. Not a single Indian has spoken up, not a single Hindu. I can't find a single one who has made a single post on social media. I am not even asking mainstream media. Forget mainstream media. What about all these people like these guys, Sandeep, Sita Voice? They all want to claim we love India. Do you really love India? What kind of human beings are you? Your brothers and sisters, children killed. But I'm going to definitely write a book on this, Simran, and I made actually a cover for my book. I don't know whether I already showed that cover to you guys, but here is the book cover, okay, that I kind of made, and I kind of made it after a lot of thought. Uh, Here it is. If you're watching me, this is the what I kind of got made was this lady. So out of these 329 passengers who dropped from 300 or 31,000 feet into the cold waters of Atlantic early morning, 2 a.m. Around 7 or 8 of them actually, when they hit the water, they were alive, as per the postmortem report. And one of the persons who were actually alive when she hit the water and remained alive for 9 full minutes fighting for her life was a lady who was 6.5 months pregnant. She and her kid, both of them survived in that water for 9 minutes. So this is the cover, of the book that I will make. But imagine the people who did this. Nobody has spoken. The only people who came out and spoke were those two CC agents. Juno Katsua wrote about his book. But what about these Terry Minuskis who are actually shielding the murderers? All these people like Sandeep, Sita Voice, and all these Indians, Barkhadas of the world, they know all this evidence. They know their country did it. They know their state did it. But they just don't have the morality of talking the truth. Now, even with John coming out and talking about this and telling the whole world that this is what has happened, like you will see, they will remain quiet. This whole entire Indian IT cell will come out and start basically, attacking John for speaking the truth and telling them who was behind the murder of their own brothers and sisters. I don't think they consider these people as their brothers and sisters. I don't think they have any feeling or pain for the victims. I think all that these guys do, the so-called Indian nationalists, is shed crocodile tears. Every June, they will conduct a space and do this fake expression of, oh, we are so sad for the victims. We are so sad they died. These Khalistanis killed them. But in reality, they have no feeling. They have literally no feeling. They're just doing it for political purpose.
About 3 minutes to hit a plane at full speed straight down. Whenever the hit blown up, at least took about 8 or 9 minutes to hit the ocean, right? That's like the most horrific situation you can.
It's the most horrific form of death.
Yep, that's fucking sad. It takes about, even you straight dive from 38,000 feet, it takes about 3 minutes, You can imagine the situation. That's terrible.
And you know what the postmortem tells Lalipaji? That more than half, actually 80% of the passengers hit the water directly. They were not even inside the plane.
It didn't kill the people. It damaged the fuselage.
And
that's why.
The damage happened in a way that they actually flew out of the aircraft. They were, even if they were part of the aircraft, it could have still saved them that agony of dropping by 31,000 feet.
Yeah, but about 12 minutes of their life, last 12 minutes, perfect.
Yeah. Anyways, we have Dharma. Dharma, how are you? I don't know whether you heard the interview by John, but I can play it for you again, and then maybe we'll take.
Dharma, hello, Dharma.
Hey, before Dharma speaks, so sorry to cut you off. I was wondering, Harjeet, do you think today would be a good day to run over your presentation, or are you just wanting to focus on John?
Yeah, we can run over the presentation as well, but I was more thinking of I was going to do more of these spaces now. I think I've got rejuvenated. I will now do it every week, okay? But for today, I was thinking, talk about John, talk about the implications of this. Yeah.
I'm sitting out there too today.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why she's not taking the speaker, but maybe she's busy somewhere.
Watching this history.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, Dharma. How are you?
Hey guys. I'm just a PPM, just a private pilot. only Cessnas.
I'm a commercial.
Oh yeah, I know. I did see John Kiriakou's interview. So one thing, what you have to understand with India is that, and I have followed air crashes, aviation disasters all over the world, and one thing that marks out India is the sheer dishonesty when it comes to acknowledging basic facts. For some reason, they refuse to acknowledge basic facts which reflect badly on their own airlines, on their own aviation industry, etc. So I'm not surprised that they are not even acknowledging what John has to say. I'm not surprised at all. With regard to the numbers, it has to be remembered that I don't know the numbers offhand, I could be wrong, but there were 329 people on Air India 182. Only 22, the crew members, 22 were Indian nationals. The 307 were foreign nationals, of which 295 were Indo-Canadians, that is Canadian citizens of Indian background or Indian origin. So majority of them, 22 Indian nationals were on board. The captain and the co-pilot were both, first officer were both Sikh. I assume from their names, they were Sikh.
Captain Pinder's friend, the son is my good friend. The captain of the plane was. My friend, we flew together actually.
Lalipati, you should call Pinder the family and ask them like what do they think about this.
That's like I'm talking about when we used to fly like 2001 and 2. He was in training back in the days, and it's been a long time since I talked about Pinder's son. He's still my actually Facebook friend till right now. I can ask him a couple questions if you want me to. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dharma, complete your thought.
Yeah, so majority of the people killed were, quote, technically not Indian, right? They had foreign passports, 307. So this became a convenient way for India to shrug off any responsibility. They could blame someone else, and that is why they did not target any. The two aircraft targeted that day, one was AI-182 and the second one was, I think 310 was the flight number.
No, but Dharma, I totally get the Indian government, their agencies, they were, they have done evil acts and they were under orders by their political establishment to do this. But what about the Indians, 1.5 billion? What about these people? There's so many of them on Twitter. Has a single person tweeted this allegation? Single person. Name me 5 out of 1.5 billion.
They reacted more to the graffiti. Paint on walls, graffiti was more of an issue for them than this.
Yeah. What does this say about? What does this say about this college-educated urban middle class coming from India? Have they any humanity? Or are they just state worshippers who are now walking zombies?
That's what I would call them, mindless zombies. And it's not just AI-182, that whatever the incident, they will go by what the state says, they will back the state. That is the way they have been programmed to do. Look at AI-171. It is all about covering up the truth. So it just happened a few months ago. So
I will use this to.
I know, Dharma, Boeing 787s. There's big allegations about the state did it, right? What the hell?
No, but here is one more thing. Leave it on the ordinary people. This is also, we will see the test of these so-called people who are basically in West. They badmouth India all day long, but they're doing it with a very sinister agenda. You see, Jayant Bhandari, has he not seen this interview? He knows. But I guarantee you today, he's not going to tweet this. He's not going to write about this. You know why? Because Jayant Bhandari is the real deal. He is the kind of implant that Indian state puts into West, who then basically earns the trust here and then backstabs this whole country and this whole system. Jayant Bhandari, if he's listening to me, you're not that smart. Okay, he abuses Indians and India all day. India is this, India is a shithole, India is that. But when it comes to the real deal, he will never talk about it. You will see, talk to him about the separatist movement in India and say, hey, okay, if India is so bad, let's just let the people in India have their freedom. Then he'll say, no, it will be even worse than what it is today. And then he will this whole act of terrorism is blamed against the Indian government. Jayant Bhandari will not even tweet it once. And you will see, I'll tag him every single day for next 1 week and let us see if he reacts. He will never. He will actually, if you go to his space and actually pick this topic up, he will give you 10 excuses why Khalistanis are the problem. Okay. So this is why, we have to be very careful.
His content only matches what white nationalists would say about other people, so he's definitely trying to entice.
So keep in mind, when Jayant Bhandari is abusing Indians, he's abusing the lower caste Indians. Okay, that's what he's doing subconsciously while he's. So in his mind, it is those Shuddhar than these like 85%, like these bloody idiots there. He's right. Like, that's what he thinks about them.
But and he's misinformed. I mean, there's so much. I went to one of his spaces, and he's just misinformed about.
He's not misinformed about anything. He is misinforming you. he's very much. He knows exactly what he's talking.
He talks about how he completely ignores the fact that South Indians are genetically different from North Indians. So it's not something
he's the kind of guy who's sent here to win the trust of the people and then basically spread disinformation. Okay, but let's play John's this thing again. We also have a Kaliji. I want to play his video again.
Are you doing
video
too, or just audio?
I'm just going to play his video is already there. I'm playing the video as well, but it's on the live stream. Let me see if I've got it to the right one.
The Indians support their own Kashmiri separatist groups, extremist groups, and it's the Indians that blew up the 747 in Canada. It's the Indians that carry out hits or attempted hits against Sikh activists or Indian leftists or anti-Hindu nationalists in places like Canada or the UK. There's plenty of blame to go around.
There's the second time he actually, it's very interesting. And the first time he brought it up, let me bring that up as well. And this was the first time he talked about it in the interview at 7 minutes, and then he talks about it at 30 minutes as well.
But look at others. Look at let's say the Greek military junta, for example, that carried out acts of terrorism against its own people. Look at Israel, that has carried out assassinations all over the world. We could even point the finger at the government of India, for that matter, for carrying out assassinations and terrorist attacks in Canada, blowing up a 747, no less. So
when he talks about blowing up a 747, you have to see the way his eyebrows go up. He's genuinely astonished that somebody dared to do this, blow up a 747. To just create a false flag and blame another community for a terror attack that they themselves have committed. It's amazing. It's amazing. Just imagine the whole evil nature of this act. Go ahead, Simran.
I was going to say, how he said Indian leftists? I'm curious, who's that group and what's happened to them in diaspora communities? We know what's happened with the Sikhs, but John mentions Indian leftists or anti-nationalists. So is he talking about a certain category of people, or do we have evidence that India's hurt them in the West too?
Yeah, that's very interesting actually. I assume that he's talking about some of the Dalit activists like the lower caste activists who I know are under threat. And yeah, it's less about them being maybe leftists, is more about them being from the lower caste and raising issues which are of caste racism in India. With that being, but that's a very good point, Simran, you bring up. But I just want to welcome.
Choices in there, right? So.
Yeah, I want to just welcome Akali ji is here. Akali ji, Vajra Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. What's your reaction to all this?
I was not surprised. We've been through too much, and I think my surprise is that how many countries or how many justice systems are left where Sikhs those can help the Sikhs. Because the corruption is that elite that controls the Canada and the influence of Israel, and then India is nearly in bed with Israel and all that. So where we can go, what we can do, so that is more of my concern rather than, I was not surprised at all. So maybe the U.S. justice system is still there that that can give us an anchor that can help us. Maybe our own activism for our own community to raise awareness in our own people. And what I feel is that this understanding is very important in our people, that beside your own country, you won't get a safe haven, doesn't matter where you go. So we have seen that after Pai Nich's death and all that. So I'm kind of more, so I have more a kind of sad feeling rather than, and I think I would like to concentrate on what we can do, who are our allies and what change we can bring, and do not expect anything from Indians. Their culture, because I was born there, so I know from first hand, their culture doesn't make those people, in a way that they can think beyond what they can see. So any expectation from Indian, doesn't matter if he's a doctor or whatever worldly education he has, that is hopeless. And the people die there every day, who cares? So they're not going to care about us or anyone else. And even this is a small incident as compared to what happened in Delhi, If that, and after that, the 40 years of courts and all that. So having any expectation from them, even a pinch of humanity, that is, I think that is foolishness. So I'll be listening to you, and I'll be more interested in what we can do, what physically, what we can do that can bring a change and that can help us get to our aim, our own home where we are protected and our next generations are prosperous, and we don't have to look at Canada or any other country, without hope that they can give us a justice. No one will give us justice, that's for sure.
No, Kaliji, before I go to Kaptan, I tell you, I have a plan. I know how to get us our homeland back. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਟੱਚ ਚ ਆਓ ਮੇਰੇ ਤੇ let's get together. And it's a very important message that you are giving. Okay, it's very important for diaspora kids to realize. The only reason Canada is not doing anything is because these 268 people were brown. Just do a thought experiment. If all of them were white, we would not have been talking about it like the way we are. So no matter
you're
how,
right, because in Soft Target, remember the Lloyd Axworthy?
yes,
not that part piece. So yeah, I definitely agree.
No matter, like, nothing against Canada, nothing against America. We are very grateful that we've been given refuge, and we will never forget it. We've been given asylum, but the fact is a fact. That's the hard truth of life. And it is important, whether you are first generation, second generation, Desi here, Sikh, we have to realize we have to get our homeland. We have to get our sovereignty back. This should be the only top priority of every Sikh anywhere in the world. Nothing else. Else, if you are willing to live like second-class citizens, be my guest.
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਨਾਲੇ ਇੱਕ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਭਾਜੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਕੋਇਨਸੀਡੈਂਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਇਹ ਇਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਰਾਤੋਂ ਰਾਤ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੀ ਪਾਲਿਸੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਕਰਪਟ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਜਾਂ ਉਹ ਬਦਲ ਗਏ ਜਾਂ ਉਹ ਕਿਸੇ ਦਬਾਅ ਥੱਲੇ ਆ ਗਏ ਉਹ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਪਾਲਿਸੀ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਰਿਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਵੱਖਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ ਪਰ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਰ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਖਾ ਲਓ ਪੀ ਲਓ ਇੰਪਲੋਇਮੈਂਟ ਇਕੁਐਲਿਟੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੇਣਗੇ ਪਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਕਿਤੋਂ ਕਦੇ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਬਦਲੇ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਵਰਲਡ ਵਾਰ 'ਚ ਜਾਪਾਨੀਆਂ ਦਾ ਬਣਾਤਾ ਸੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੰਸੈਂਟਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਕੈਂਪ ਸੋ ਲੌਂਗ ਟਰਮ ਸਰਵਾਈਵਲ ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਮੁਲਕ 'ਚ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ I admitted that the people who are born in these destinations, the new sixth generation, will be very difficult for them to understand and kind of digest it, and it's much easier for us who are not born here. But सच्चाई क्या हुई है ये सच
Yeah. Kaptan,
May I say before Kaptan, sorry,
go ahead,
so
go
quick,
ahead.
I'm so curious now how many videos are in the geopolitical world where this may have been casually spoken about and we just haven't seen it yet. So now I feel like watching like all these random videos because who knows, maybe people have discussed it and said stuff like this in passing. But yeah, anyways, Kaptan.
Yeah, no, it actually came randomly to me. Somebody just sent it. Kaptan, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for letting me speak. So, a couple of points. One, I was going to say that if you look at what's happening right now, the U.S. is using Pakistan as an interlocutor with Iran to solve the Iran crisis. Pakistan's role is, people need to recognize Pakistan's role is much greater on the world stage now than it's been in decades. They've never had this kind of a role, serving as a peacemaker. They're a key cog in U.S. foreign policy, as shown by these recent events. And what does Pakistan support? Pakistan supports the creation of Khalistan in general by its, words and by its deed in the recent past. If you look at the creation of the Kartarpur corridor or the sort of the diplomatic support for Sikhs, I think that people who are sad by certain events, I think they should just see the desperation in the Indian polity and the regime. The fact that they're now paying bad actors to try and take murtis into gurdwaras, right, or to take these deity figures into gurdwaras is how desperate they are to try and bring Sikhs back into the Hindu orbit. That's not going to happen, and they hate the Western born Sikhs. People like myself and Lucy and SK, people that talk about this stuff, and they know that Kronos and others like us are pushing the Sikh cause, and we have no ties to their culture, their Indian culture. We don't live the way that they live. We don't think the way that they think. And that's a threat because they know we understand, the Western mindset because we were born and raised in the West. We grew up in the West. We have the Western mindset where we're not going to be bought and paid for, if we believe in this cause. So I think there's a few things that have gone on. I think this whole thing with Manipur, when you look at what's happening over there and the attention that's getting, and you look at what Indians themselves are saying, that there were some CIA operatives or other people that were involved there. There's a level of paranoia within these people in the regime that hasn't been there to date. I think these Gujaratis are going to be exposed, and once they lose their grip, once they lose their grip, then you're going to see, everybody realize that it's just a Gujarati mafia from day one that's been running India according to their mentality. And their mentality is completely transactional. They'd sell their grandmother for $50. That's the mentality that they have. It's all transactional. People will realize that what they've been seeing is from day one with all these Nehrus and Mahatma Gandhi, there are all these Gujarati people that have run that country from day one and have destroyed it and have lied about the poverty rates. They've lowered the level that it takes to qualify as being poor, just so that they can meet some metrics. They've stopped entering any international competitions that involve education and things like this. They don't want to be exposed, but they're being exposed daily. And you see online in the X spaces, there's so many people that basically have expressed a common cause with Sikhs. And I posted something the other day, just like, look at these people dumping milk into lakes and rivers and everything else, and at the same time they're drinking cow urine. Do you want to believe what those people say about Khalistan, about Sikhs, about anybody that wants to break up India? Or do you want to listen to the people that say that is satanic or demonic, or just on its face, it's absurd? Who dumps milk into a lake or a river, a culture, and they support it, bar none? This concept. You see it all the time with all the shit that they're throwing in all the lakes and the rivers, destroying the environment. Are you going to believe those people, that Sikhs are such extremists? We just don't want to be around them and their culture.
Kaptan, I have a question. I have a question for you. Sorry to interrupt your thought, but
Go ahead.
do you think John's this statement? Do you think it is premeditated, or do you think it just came off the cuff?
No, that's 100% premeditated. He had to have had some clearance. Like, once you're from everything that I've read, I'm not a part of the CIA, so I don't know. Maybe it's different. But once you're a part of some kind of intelligence network agency like that, you don't just go off the cuff. You can't go rogue like that, and say things that, you don't have that knowledge. They could sue him, Why aren't they suing the guy for basically implicating them in the Air India bombing? Saying that why isn't the Indian government suing him if this was so, egregious, or he was so defamatory, or if he was wrong, he's lying, he's
they never sued the Globe and Mail as well, even Joel Kashmiri for alleging.
If you take it to a court of law, there's something called discovery.
Correct.
They'd have to answer questions under oath and provide evidence.
Correct.
And the other side has evidence. They have proof. Now, I've done a lot of thought exercises with Grok, asking it about these kinds of things. And Grok always gives these milquetoast kind of Indian regime-friendly answers until you start really probing Grok and telling it, answer me about David Kilgore.
Yeah.
Tell me, why wasn't he allowed to testify? Yeah. Tell me why the major inquiry had limited terms of reference. Tell me about the pattern of behavior with respect to, the detention of Sikhs. Why don't you, and I basically try and get Grok to finally admit that, there's a pattern of behavior. And eventually Grok always, and I tell Grok, tell the truth. If you're a truth-seeking engine, which you say you are, then come across with, a rationalization that explains all of these things. And then it invariably, so far in my experience, when questioning Grok on these points and why it's answering in a certain way, eventually it always comes around and says, I will start to incorporate TNR into this conversation. I will start talking about, patterns of behavior.
So Kaptan, to the early question, if it was premeditated, so you kind of believe that it's kind of almost at a systemic level. Basically, he was not even acting as an individual. He this was somebody gave him a signal to do this.
Yeah, I think President Trump has basically signaled to all of us, all of the things that he said from that first. We had that space after Modi came begging with a bowl in hand after Jay Shankar sat outside Mar-a-Lago trying to get a meeting. He came and they were embarrassed, on so many levels in that meeting where they asked this idiotic question, and then the notes that were put out afterwards, and they talked about, terrorism and criminal behavior and all this kind of stuff. I remember we did this space. I wish we'd record these spaces, but that one wasn't recorded, I'm pretty sure. Regardless, I think it's from pattern of behavior. And then you saw the conflict with Pakistan and India.
Got it.
We're on from 6 planes to 7 planes to 10 to 11 planes.
Yeah, got it. I have a lot of questions. Captain, I have a lot of questions.
But one thing.
Yeah.
President Trump has not spared any opportunity to embarrass these people. And he does it by saying Modi's his friend. So what's Modi going to say? That Trump's, hates Modi? No, he says Modi's my friend all the time. But yet he embarrasses India at every turn, and including saying that we'll allow India to buy oil from Russia for a month or 2 months. And Indians were losing their minds. These Hindutva people were losing their minds.
Yeah, Captain, we'll bring the geopolitics into it, but I want to make sure that people are, and I'll come back to you. I have some other questions on this. But Dharma, you had your hand raised, and I want to kind of keep sure that people who are joining late, that just to refresh everybody's memory, why we are talking today is that we have CIA high-ranking official John Kiriakou actually come on live TV. And in the past, we've had Canadian intelligence investigators alleged to Globe and Mail, but they never showed us their faces. We've had Juno Katsua write it in his book, but he kind of leaves it hanging there. But now we have a CIA official come publicly official, like we can see him in flesh and blood, alleging what is now common knowledge in the intelligence circles, which is that India was behind the Air India 1 and 2 bombing. So we are discussing that and discussing the implications of that. Dharma, please go ahead. You had your hand raised here.
Yeah, thanks, Harjeet. So 2 points I wanted to make. One is that, yes, John is certainly, his statements right now are certainly part of a larger plan. I believe that. I'll come back to this later, but before I forget, last time on the last place I was going to mention this, but there was a book written by a former intelligence official called Maloy Dhar. I read it in 2006 or something like that.
Open Secrets. Yeah.
Yes, Maloy Dhar. He was not RAW, but
IB.
He was IB. Right, so India has 2 intelligence agencies, IB and RAW. So he was part of RAW, and these 2 agencies it's the worst kept secret in India that these 2 are almost openly at conflict with each other. So his comments at the time, many were dismissing it as rivalry with other intelligence agencies operating in India. But very important points he made, which aviation observers like myself and even Lal and others would understand. If you look at these hijackings that Maloy Dhar says were false flags, there were 4 or 5 hijackings of Indian Airlines flights in the 1980s. Even before 1984, there were 3 or 4. I'm sorry, I don't remember the numbers, but Maloy Dhar has gone into great details on that, on how these were false flag operations. One of them even had the former NSA Subramaniam, I think the Airbus 300, which was hijacked to Dubai via Lahore. IC421, I think. That even had Subramaniam, who later became the NSA, on board as one of the quote-unquote passengers. Which he goes into great details about how these were false flags, supposedly done by Babbar Khalsa and I don't remember the name of the other federation, but which was blamed to be Khalistani separatists. And he goes into great details about how these were false flag operations, which makes for pretty interesting reading, especially when, as an observer of aviation who has observed hijackings and other such things from reports from very closely who has read these reports, I find these 3 or 4 hijackings very suspicious.
Yeah, no,
How
but
did they get on
Dharma,
board?
I'll kind of intervene. I have read that book. It's an excellent point you bring in. Everybody should buy this book. It's called Open Secrets, and the writer is M.K. Dhar, Malloy Krishna Dhar. He was the deputy director of Intelligence Bureau, actually the most powerful intelligence organization India has. RAW is not as powerful as IB. IB is the domestic intelligence, but it also does external intelligence. And so he's as high as you can get. And he wrote this book, and this book was published just 5 months before his death. And this book is actually banned in India. Imagine. And his son, who is no longer a Indian citizen, his son is actually, I think, a UK citizen. He then worked very hard to get it published. And if you can get a hand on that book, highly recommended, because the main crux of that book is not the revelations he's making. He made a lot of revelations, but the main crux of that book is that he's making a plea to the international audience that they have to intervene in India. He basically makes a case that the Indian agencies are rogue to a level that CIA and even KGB cannot be. And his main argument is this, that the Indian agencies are totally unaccountable, because CIA and CSIS and even MI6, all these agencies are formed by an act of a parliament. And they are, at the end of the day, yes, people can argue, like there are like question marks, they have a lot of discretion that they misuse, but they can be hauled up by the Senate anytime. And in America, you see like the CIA chief being called by the senators like every third day, and kind of, he has a budget. They talk about slush budget and all, but that slush budget is slush budget. It's not a slush budget from the government. He has a budget he has to kind of adhere to. And he can be held accountable. But M.K. Dhar makes the argument that the Indian intelligence is totally different. It has no budget. It has no boss. It only reports to the prime minister, who changes every 5 years, and it is not bound by any act of the parliament. It is basically a mafia, and it's a mafia like no other. And he makes a comparison with CIA and MI6, and he basically says that if left unchecked, these two agencies, RAW and IB, will cause havoc in the world that the world does not know what it is doing. And I agree with him. And I think that the whole world has to intervene. Like this is a prime example. I think when John Kiriakou in this interview talks about blowing up the 747, you have to see his eyes. He is actually astonished that somebody did this, like for their own people, to blame their other group of own people. Unheard of. I have not heard North Korea do this act with their own people. If they have, please provide me evidence. Okay, but India is one such country, and the people call it democracy. I don't know with what face they call it a democracy, but anyways, SK had the hand raised, and then we'll go to Akali. SK, go ahead.
SK, if I could just
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Dharma, complete your thought. Yeah, that's fine.
It's about AI 182, and there were actually a plan to blow up 2 planes that day, AI 182 and AI 310. 310 could not be blown up because the bomb blew up on the ground itself. Both these, what a coincidence that X-ray baggage at Vancouver and at Montreal, Air India's X-ray baggage facilities at all 3 points, Vancouver, Tokyo, Montreal, all failed on that particular day. When there was specific intelligence about something like this happening, their baggage failed, and yet the flight was allowed to proceed, and the baggage was checked through when there are specific instructions given by Air India security that in case the X-ray baggage doesn't work, the baggage will be left behind. In spite of that, this one baggage was checked through when 29 other baggages were not checked through because of the rules in place when the X-ray baggage is not working. I mean, there are so many questions that when you read the Air India 182 report and the Air India 310 report in detail, these red flags pop up. The question is, why aren't these red flags being talked about? I think I should write a detailed post on it soon, blog on this very soon.
Yeah, and I can give you, Dharma, I have created an AI space database, and I have uploaded all the court documents, all the inquiries, all the evidence, soft book, PDF, everything. It have 82 sources. And you can ask it any question and do any analysis on top of it. But yeah, I have actually a 3 hour, 2 hour live stream I did where I talk about only the misses at the airport. Okay, if you forget everything else, the money paid to Ripudaman Malik by the Indian government, if you even ignore the allegations by CC's investigators, you ignore the sham public inquiry commission, you ignore that the whole court case with all the evidence, still the accused were made to walk free. You ignore even John's allegations here. Just look at what happened at the airport. That itself will tell you, hey, this is an intelligence operation going on, probably with the full connivance of even Canadians. And it's mind-boggling how these bombs got on. The bag got onto not one aircraft; it got onto an aircraft in Vancouver, traveled without passenger from Vancouver to Toronto, and then Toronto it got onto another aircraft without a passenger, and from there the aircraft went to another airport, and it got delayed by 3.5 hours. The X-ray machine doesn't get X-rayed because the X-ray machines mysteriously stop working 15 minutes before this bag is to be scanned. Once this bag goes through without X-ray scanning, the X-ray machine comes back live again, and the X-ray technician who came to check the machine, he could never find any fault. He could say, hey, I don't know how it went off and how it came back on. All the dog squads of Toronto are on training going to Vancouver on that particular day. The security officer of Air India is not available only for that day. A temporary security officer from New York has come in, and that temporary security officer gives a fake demo to the security staff, which allows them to actually not even use the sniffers properly. And they allow this bag to go through even after the sniffer is beeping, primarily because of the demo given by that security officer. And that security officer refuses to call the backup dog squad. Toronto Airline calls Canada Airlines call the backup A squad. The security officer, the Indian Airline security officer, refuses to wait for 15 more minutes to have the backup dog squad arrive and orders the plane to take off after fighting with the airport authorities. This is how this aircraft got into the air with the bomb. And it's just amazing.
There were bags offloaded. There were bags that because of the X-ray machine failure, some bags could not be loaded on because there's a specific rule that says that if it could not be X-rayed, it will be sent by the next flight. And so there were around 29 bags that were not sent on the flight. But this this one bag, which had been
without the passenger,
on a Canadian Pacific flight, it arrived from Vancouver, and it was checked through, even without being checked again because of the X-ray machine failure. Other 29 bags get pulled out, but this bag gets on board. How
okay.
Funny.
But this bag was actually caught by the baggage checking guy. His statement is on record.
The Canadian Pacific guy.
Not Canadian Pacific. The security guy, who actually was scanning. Then they use handheld scanners. Okay, and he said that when my handheld scanner was on this bag, I heard the beep. But the Indian airline security officer grabbed the scanner from his hand and said, you are doing it wrong. He lit a matchstick, took the matchstick right next to the scanner, and the scanner started giving a whistling noise, okay, because the fumes were too close. And he told this guy that, hey, you will actually get a full whistling noise, not a beep. Okay. And because he gave that demo, he said, I was so afraid when this bag beeped. This guy has just given me a thrashing that it has to be a whistling noise. I did not have the courage to take the bag out. If he had not given me that demo, I would have immediately taken this bag out. Okay. So there's a lot that happened on that airport. We will do a full episode on that. And but leave that, just focus on, is the CIA official gone mad? Okay, the CIA, John Kiriakou, might have gone bonkers. Let's assume that. Do two CC's agents, investigators who actually investigated, who actually went to Globe and Mail and gave the whole story out of like how money was paid to Ripudaman Malik, how Ripudaman Malik basically hired foot soldiers to get the bags onto the plane. Was all that also those two CC agents also gone mad? Okay, fine. We assume those also gone mad. What about Juno Katsua? He writes in his book that Indian government did it. Has he gone rogue? Okay, let's assume he's gone rogue. What about the judge who heard all this evidence in the Supreme Court against Ripudaman Malik, against Bagadi, against Riyadh, and he still lets go all these accused walk free? Like, just read the court case for hell's sake. Go and read the amount of evidence. It's all out there. Ripudaman Malik, the girlfriend tells you this is how he said he arranged the people. This is how much money he paid. This is how he booked the tickets. This is how they got the bags on the aircraft. This is the person's car they used. All thrown out of the window because Indian agents couldn't be put to jail, because then the India's name will come out. So like, come on, like there's too much stuff out there right now for the Canadian government to act innocent, ignorant, or to use propaganda. Propaganda. I don't know what you call pimps like Terry Milewski to muddy the waters, to mislead and disinform the people. The cat is out of the bag. Cat is out of the bag. Whosoever is there in Canada, okay, it's out of the bag. It's not going back in the bag. It's there. You will need a new world order to put it back in the bag. So you better like and first of all, hats off. Okay, I just want to take. I do want to kind of acknowledge the courage of people, man. Courage of people like those two CC investigators who went and shared all the information with Zuhair Kashmiri, Globe and Mail. Okay. And people like Terry Milewski, they come up and they basically try to discredit them, saying, oh, these are anonymous sources who came to Globe and Mail. No, they are not anonymous. This is where he's a liar. Terry Milewski, he's lying through his teeth. He knows very well these are not anonymous sources. These are called, in journalist world, they are called confidential sources. People who come...
McAndrew and Kashmiri, right?
Yes. No, not McAndrew and Kashmiri. The two CC agents who...
The reporters were McAndrew and Kashmiri.
Yeah, the reporters were McAndrew and Kashmiri. But they were not just, Captain, they were not just McAndrew and Kashmiri. When they were writing, they were fully employed by Globe and Mail and Toronto Star. So basically, the two top journalists from the two highest selling dailies in Canada. Okay, Daku, can you just mute your mic? Yeah. So the CC agents came to them and gave them this whole story of how this was done. And people like Terry Milewski, the scum of the world, they claim that, they try to discredit by these fake, lame excuses. Oh, these were anonymous sources. No, the soft target book does not quote anonymous sources. The people, it's confidential sources. And anybody who has anything to do with journalism or media, they know when journalists of Globe and Mail write something in their name with the name of Globe and Mail behind them, there's the full legal department which will check whether these people who are claiming they are CC agents, whether they are correct or not. Otherwise, they will not let them publish that book. The publisher will check. Otherwise, they'll get sued for millions of dollars for defamation, for spreading false information. They won't be able to write again. But the Indian government was never able to sue Zuhair Kashmiri. Why? Because they know if they sued Globe and Mail or Zuhair Kashmiri or the publisher of that book, then they would have to show who their confidential sources were. And that is the reason why John C. Major, when WSO made a representation to the John C. Major Commission that we should call Zuhair Kashmiri, we should call Brian McAndrew to the Public Inquiry Commission, force them to reveal their sources. The John C. Major flatly refused. He said, it's not my mandate to fix responsibility for the bombing. It's out of my mandate. What a farcical inquiry, so-called. And these idiots like Terry Milewski have the gumption. They think the whole world is so fool that they can come and tell the whole world this lie, that this inquiry fixed everything and they have fixed the responsibility for the bombing. Whom are they fooling? People can go and read that John C. Major inquiry report. See where John C. Major himself has written, I cannot call these witnesses. I am not allowed to fix the responsibility for the bombing. Okay, but I know the hands are raised, but I want to acknowledge the bravery of these CC agents who went to Globe and Mail. Sardar Tara Singh here, he was murdered because he would have been the most credible witness against Ripu Daman Malik. The quote unquote platonic lover of Ripu Daman Malik, she went and risked her entire life. Nobody today knows where she is. She's probably under some witness protection. Maybe she's even killed by now. And she risked everything to come and spill the beans on Ripu Daman Malik. Mr. A and Mr. B, whose identity we don't know, who spilled beans on Ripu Daman Malik, and how he was out there trying to arrange people to put bombs, baggage on the aircraft. There's also Mr. Narinder Gill, who didn't care that his name was being openly shown on the court case. He gave testimony against Ripu Daman Malik. We have to acknowledge the courage of John Kiriakou, and and I'm sure many others. Just one sec.
The point he made about mainstream media is good, though, because most of them will not publish a story unless they have a second source, even a third. So even if they know that their information is good, they still need a second source to validate, and then they can go with a story. It's a pretty great point.
Yeah, there's another El Capitan who has come. I'm pretty sure he's an Indian.
Captain. I think he got nuked, and then he made a second one.
Okay, got it. I don't know why that happened, but I can add him. But hey, Coin is here finally. Coin, I've been missing you. I have not seen you for so long. I hope everything is okay. Chardiya Kalaya.
Yeah, good, thanks. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
That John Kiriakou finding that you found, Harjeet Singh, I think, there's divine timing sometimes. That was, I think, really fortunate because John's also getting a lot of kudos just generally at the moment. His podcasts are huge. He gets interviewed by some of the, I'd say, really prominent truth tellers on social media in general. So what he says is taken, I think, quite seriously. So having someone like that make this statement is, and not once, twice, and quite convincingly, I think it does bode well for us. And I think what we also now need to be doing, in a way, and I think you do it quite well, is to actually put this information out more, I think, systematically, because it's a great opportunity to do that, because like you said, we've had previously people who have, and they've been quite fortunate who've written books, because why the Canadian government, what actions and their non-actions of what is state terrorism, and why it wasn't and hasn't been taken seriously. And, that's a discussion we can have. But, we also can't forget that there was, the actions of the Indian government wasn't just, obviously, the Canadian bombing of the 747. There was other planned bombings as well. And that was highlighted really carefully and clearly in the book by the Canadian MP. Sorry, I just had it up before I bring it up.
Yeah, David Kilgour, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So David Kilgour's book is really important, I think, because what it does highlight that, within this special meeting that took place, and that was referred to as an international cooperation benefiting respective governments. And if you look at the individuals that were part of that conspiracy to basically create another bombing in Europe of an Air India plane to blame the Sikhs. Now, that is quite serious, because you had that incident, and then you had another false flag that was being attempted or blame being attributed to is in the Killer case. So you've got 3 cases there, 3 opportunities to push forward this narrative that the Sikhs are extremists and terrorists at a time when the Indian government was committing genocide, horrific genocide of the Sikhs in Punjab. So, and that's a pattern that authoritarian regimes do, because how do you deflect from their crimes against humanity? They go after authorities that are, outside, who are raising awareness. And that was really, really serious. And I think Kilgore's book in particular does raise something that even, John Kiriakou raised about using cutouts. These are these sort of actors, state actors, because those people weren't state actors. I think they were just a criminal syndicate because, there was a neo-Nazi person who, for example, used to take money to create terrorism crimes. There was 2 Sikh gentlemen that were there. There was someone else who was identified as an Italian. And the whistleblower, who was a Russian defector who was working, with CSIS at the time. And maybe it'd be interesting why he was sent. Was he just sent because he did actually, he did report it to the police the very next day, and that's how that plan fizzled. But it was quite a serious plan of bombing another airline to blame the Sikhs. And
it's very I'll give
that's really serious, right?
I'll give people a quick rundown because I totally remember that plot. So the plot was like this: the Canadian intelligence has this spy on their whatever roles, and they tell him, we have a job for you. And as per him, he's sent to Germany, I think. And then our Indian friends are asking for some help. You have to help this guy bomb an aircraft or help him do some act. Then he goes there, and then I don't think he was told initially they're bombing an aircraft. Then he said, I reach there, I get into this big apartment complex, and I get into this room, and I see these Sikhs. I will not name the person he saw. People can read his book. Who are totally dressed up, and then we have these German intelligence officers, and they are planning to bomb an aircraft. And he said, when I heard their plan, this is what I have to supposed to help them. He said, I developed cold feet because what happens to me now? And if these guys will end up bombing the aircraft, and he didn't trust CCs completely. So he wanted to get out of that quagmire. So what he did was he traveled to another country close by in Europe where he was wanted for a crime. And he said, I can then go there and have myself arrested. That way I can give an excuse to CCs. I can't help these guys because I got arrested. Okay. So he travels to this other country and just kind of shows himself up. And lo and behold, the police there arrest him, and he's put behind the bars where he was wanted for a couple of years, and he remains there in bar. And then the CCs basically complain that we know that you deliberately got yourself arrested. So that's the whole story in that book. But it kind of corroborates.
Just to clarify, I don't think it's hard to know if there was other intelligence or whether there were some people who were observing, because there was a German man who chaired it. There was an Italian identified as Dr. DeMarco. There were 2 Sikhs. There was Przowski himself, who was called, his alias was Robert Fisher, and he was sent at that time by CSIS, whether it was just to sort of, they've heard of another plot happening to try to understand it. We don't know. That's just sort of stretching. But I think, he described the plot as being macabre, even for someone in his line of work. And he went back to the hotel and he would have informed, CSIS. And I think I don't know if he was advised or it was his own volition. He informed the Italian police, and they came and sort of disrupted that. Now, what's sort of important is that during that meeting, what they were talking about was that they were trying to push forward this agenda that it was international cooperation, but it wasn't. And I think, in line with what Zuhair Kashmiri, Brian McAndrew, The fact that you have an ex or a former Canadian MP, David Kilgour, like they've all come on board and saying that India's role orchestrated the 1985 bombing of Air India Flight 182. Now these aren't small names or small, people. And I think, when you've got even the FBI and now you've got CIA agents coming out and saying that, it's a pattern of information, particularly now with, I think, India's transnational repression and terrorism history, which is only getting... Did she cut out?
Yeah, we just lost her. She dropped the mic. She was in listener, and then I hope there's not her battery.
May I steal half a second? And then
before she gets back? Then we can go to Kaptan. Yep, go ahead, Simran.
Okay, sounds good. So the other point that I forgot to make was I think Agar said this before, and I think all of you have said this in some way. Ki jad sikh sauda chakde ne, hai na, oh keh dende hai. So they've already spoken about so much. So why didn't they take any credit for this when that is the culture? When you do sauda, that they're open about it. And I kind of butchered the way I said that.
Yeah. And then, and I'll just plug in a couple of books for people to read. People who can watch me on my live stream. Okay, for some reason I can't show it. Let me see if I can get to show it. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, this is the book. There are two books in my hand. You can see the first one is The Soft Target, which was published in 1988. Then a revised version was published, I think, in 2005, immediately after the criminal trial for the case was over. It's identical books. There not a single word was changed. Only thing is they added a preface. And the preface basically says, didn't we tell you so in 1988 that nobody will be punished? Because the Canadian government has already decided to bury the Indian hand. Nobody can be punished for this. And the preface basically then kind of tells you what happened in the court case and why they didn't punish anyone and any new information that came out in the court case. But basically the whole court case was trying the same people that the book had published. This is the book. I recommend people should buy it. Soft Target. It says Soft Target, India's intelligence service and its role in the Air India disaster. And this is the revised version which got published. And the initial one that was published in 88 was How the Indian Intelligence Service Penetrated Canada, Soft Target. So people should buy this book. And then another thing, similar to your point, I was recently reading a book by the DGP of Punjab. He was one of the DGPs, the top cop in Punjab in India, where the persecution of Sikhs was done by the Indian state. And he was a state employee. His book is called Identity and Survival. And in that book, he details that every single incident of terrorism in Punjab, which involved killing of the Hindus, was done by the Indian state. A DGP is
What's it called?
The book is called Identity and Survival. From the murder of A.S. Atwal to the Tilma bus killing, to the murder of 3 Hindus that were taken out of the bus and killed again, to the murder of Longowal, he basically lists out all these acts and says these are all the acts of the Indian state. And he interestingly also talks about third agency. Okay. And that's another book to read, Identity and Survival by Kirpal Tillon, DGP. Okay. No less. Then there's another book by A.R. Darshi, Ajit Ram Darshi. He was Joint Secretary of Punjab government. In his book is called The Gallant Defender. He was the Joint Secretary. He was in the thick of things happening in Punjab in the 80s. Okay. He, in his book, did not even lay out that, okay, all these killings in Punjab were being done by the Indian state. He actually named the officers that, okay, so-and-so killing of Hindus, so-and-so raw officer, V.I. Vasudeva, here so-and-so are an AW officer. So he's written it down, documented it in the book. And So those are the two books worth reading. I'm actually just got hold of those books, so I'll be sharing a lot of that information.
Third agency, is that referencing some type of Indian
Yeah.
third party or like a different?
Yeah.
entity?
So basically, what the Indian state did was to the whole this all of this persecution of Sikhs, Kanishka bombing, Blue Star, all the planning of this had started in '79, and to keep it utmost secret, and they created a separate agency called Third Agency. It was not IB, not RAW. Intelligence officers from IB and RAW were taken, and a third agency was created. It was a law unto itself. It was being directed directly by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and her four main confidants: Sanjay Gandhi, Fotedar, Arun Nehru, and one more guy. And these guys who were directing this third agency, and they were above the law. The Chief Minister of Punjab didn't know what was happening. Even the Home Minister was not told. Everything was controlled by them through the third agency. So interesting. You read that book and you'll come to know how they did all these acts of terrorism, state
I
terrorism.
read about the third agency in Ajmer Singh Randhawa. You know, did a Pritama,
Yeah.
the Ajmer here. He wrote about it too. I put it in the pill.
Got it. Okay, let's go to we have a Falcon. I know we had. I think Kaptan, you had your hand raised before I go further.
Yeah, you can let Falcon go first. I think he's a new speaker.
Okay, Falcon, go ahead.
Good morning, guys. It's morning time here in Europe, so hope everyone is doing good.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, so I have only a few things to raise. We all knew that there was an Indian involvement in the killing of these people in the air, the bombing of this Air India. So if you guys know, like I think it was 1 year ago or around when the Shitio in nature. And after that, so the Australian government, I think, deported 3 to 4 people who were like doing a recce of airports. They were keeping an eye on the ground staff. So they were planning to do something similar like Air India bombing from like which gone from Canada to, which was going from Canada to London. So, I mean, on that time, the hype was very up. I mean, the by nature killing and Kanda and all these things were very new. So they wanted to do the same thing like they did in the back. So they wanted to put everything back in the ground. They wanted to cover everything up with dirt. So now they know everything. They did not, they did not say any names or they did not say without what actions they took. So I know many people are here from Canada, but I don't expect anything from the Commonwealth countries because UK till now, by Avatas and Kanda died, they did not have any like official inquiry. People knew that is assassination. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect from the Commonwealth countries. And second of all,
pretty soon too, right?
Excuse me.
Yeah, I can tell you what to expect.
Anniversary. Sorry,
Falcon, I can tell you what to expect. Expect them to be turned into third world shitholes by India in next 15 years. That's what to expect. And that's what their future is. That's where they're headed because they can't stand up for their own sovereignty. And they want to kind of, be friendly, buddy with the mass murderers. So be it, they'll be for it. And I can tell you, like right now, like you bring up a right point on aviation terrorism. Like I think Lucy is there down there. I think it was she or somebody coined from your group of girls who made a very good point that when it comes to aviation terrorism, there's no match of the Indian state and agencies, and they have been involved in all these kind of acts like these hijacks. And, yeah, we don't have evidence of Israel, like, but with India we have enough evidence, and then there was there were all these hijacks. Plus, you talk about Australia. I think there was one more incident which, if I am not wrong, it's not hitting my memory yet, but it'll come back. Yeah,
the 1983 bombing in India, which had very eerily similar baggage handling I would say, strategy.
Yeah.
And that was blamed on the Elam Tamils, or who claimed
Entities,
responsibility.
correct. Yeah,
But that
same.
was a weird case because that group which claimed responsibility had just formed and then immediately disbanded after that bombing, and they were all discharged. And one key conspirator only went to prison for less than 2 years. So that was a really strange case. Actually, SK said something really interesting. I was just looking at the links between Israel, Mossad, and India. And in when RAW was created, Indira Gandhi actually explicitly advised RN Kaur to build relations with Mossad at the very inception. And this was to counter Pakistan's military cooperation with China and North Korea. During the 1971 Indo-Pakistani War, Israel supplied India and the Muktibani with mortars, ammunition, military instructors. Israeli arms manufacturer Shumlo played a key role, and this was actually kept secret due to India's public stance. In the late 70s, covert contacts continued under Prime Minister Desai. In 1979, he secretly invited Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Dayan to India, where he travelled discreetly to avoid public notice. These were low-profile links, and then in the 80s, there was deeper training, security cooperation, and operational ties. So, and that expanded under Indira Gandhi, who returned in Prime Minister in 1980. So that included in 83 counter-terrorism training. So there's about 20 Indian special group. So I don't know if they were part of that third agency. So they were commanders from the 56th Commando Company. They received 3 weeks of intensive training at Israel's secret Siyeret Maktabal base with Mossad commandos, and they led the famous 1977 Entebbe hostage rescue. So they coordinated the program despite lack of diplomatic ties. These commanders later took part in Operation Blue Star in the 84 raid and of Golden Temple and around obviously Punjab. Post-assassination, India also requested Israeli assistance to overhaul prime ministerial security apparatus. So Israeli specialists were also consulted for Rajiv Gandhi's residence as well. So, and this was obviously during the period of the 85. I think that period needs to be looked at, is Rajiv Gandhi's role and his links with Mossad. And I would think Pakistan intelligence trying to probably have way more information about all this. And maybe now with John Kiriakou coming out, there might be some more leaks and some more intel, particularly since now people are giving Pakistan greater importance as being a regional stabilizer, because all of India's actions so far, if it can't even keep its own territory stable, then how is it going to contribute in being a stabilizing force of the region? I think that's something that needs to be looked at too.
I just want to.
Appreciate it.
Just one thing I want to kind of say before you start. Sure. I want to kind of make sure urge people to follow John Kiriakou. I see follow him on Twitter. I think this is the least we can do. I see he has a podcast on Apple called John Kiriakou's Dead Drop. Please follow him there. I am talking to certain.
I gotta say, in the last 6 months, it's hard not to see John. He's gone totally viral, on every social media. So his timing is.
Except he'll be absent on the Indian media for quite some time now. They'll be running in for them. Anyways, I'm trying to work with certain prominent Sikhs to actually honor John, invite him to a Sikh seminar or something, give him some more visibility within the Panth. And I also want to urge, look at John. I'm pretty sure there are more people out there who know something about this. Please come up and speak. That's the minimum you can do. Nothing's going to happen. This cat is out of the bag. It's not going back in the bag. No Canadian government, no Indian government can stop the truth from come out. So you better come out and tell people what you know. The what about the families? I think the families know they have been following this. That what's going on. They probably have been silenced. I know they've been made to sign some kind of NDAs when they were given this compensation, but maybe they should pick it up. They should pick it up. Why John is alleging it? Canadian government should clarify. They should issue an official statement. Why are they silent? The Indian government, no, we don't have any expectation from Indian government. Like they are kind of the ones who did it, but the pressure can be put on Canadian government. Like the families, they should take the statement from John, and maybe ask the Canadian government give an explanation why John is making these statements. And and then if there's anybody else out there who knows something about it, please talk about it. Please reach out to people. Please reach out to me. I'm nobody, but I'm happy to share if anybody has any more information about this dastardly attack. Yeah. Somebody is kind of clearing his throat, but yeah, he's ready to share something. Anyways, Falcon, go ahead.
Hold on a second. Harjeet, I was going to speak.
अच्छा ओ मैंने हाथ नहीं नजर आया. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
मैं थोड़ा सा unable to बात करूं. हाँ जी, मैं कैसा था ये गलत नहीं.
हाँ जी करो.
Let me speak after that. Don't mind.
Sure.
जी thank you. हाँ पंजाबी जी गल नहीं. मैं कहना थी मेरा खुद विचार नहीं हैगा. मैं भी यूनिवर्सिटी की सोनी भी आया. आज ये फ्लाइट पे पर विचार चर्चा कर रहे हैं. उस समय जेडी
I just wanted to say after Coins spoke, I just wanted to add something quickly, and then I will go out of the space because I've got to go to work too. So, is it okay for you?
Okay, Doku, if you don't mind, let's take Falcon's thing and come. Okay, go ahead, Falcon.
So, as she spoke of the hand of the Israelis in the Operation Blue Star. So, as Paisarji Singh is from Talking Punjab says, that we as Sikhs, we need to conserve our energy right now. So when the PLO was there, so Yasser Arafat traveled to India with his pistol, and he appreciated Indira Gandhi on that time, the way he handled the Operation Blue Star. And it's on record. And now, since the Iran war is happening, and Sikhs are forced, or I don't know, because of staying with the Indian regime for too long, our brains is also somehow, I don't know, infected. So these are two wars. Where should we not speak anything? Because when we were going through the worst time in the history, no one spoke for us. No PLO, no Palestinians, no, and even Israelis, they hate us the same. Because why would they help a third world country? So they know that which kind of a power Sikhs are. So everyone in the world will try to stop us. Even the Britishers, even the Mughals, whoever. So Sikhs have to fend for themselves right now. This is the harsh truth, and I hope that I'm not going out of topic, but it just came into my mind. So we are alone. And I think the only true ally we have right now in the world is United States. That's all. So I hope that I wish everyone a nice, I don't know what's the night or day. So I wish you guys a nice health and success in life, and goodbye, guys. Huh?
Okay, Falcon, thank you for sharing your thoughts. I will also start to wrapping up this space, but we'll have last speakers have their say, and because I'm going to do more spaces on this. Okay, John has given us a new fresh life. He has reminded me that, hey, this can't be let go.
You have to do the presentation again.
Yeah, definitely, multiple times. Yeah, and like how, like I don't know whether this was incidental. Like there's a guy who sends me all kind of video messages to read, and I don't listen to 80% of what he sends me. Okay, and then but he sends me this video, and I don't listen to it. And then he basically called me, Harjeet, you should listen to this. And he's never asked me I should listen to this. So whatever came my mind, I actually started listening to this interview. And as he said, in the very first minute, I had John saying this, and yeah, I don't know, like it was a lucky kind of a break in that sense. But anyways, Dakuji, go ahead.
ਮੈਂ ਸਰ ਇਹ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਸੀ ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਨੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਮੋਟਾ ਕੰਪਨਸੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਸੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਯਾਤਰੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਜ ਫੇਰ ਇੱਕ ਜੇ ਉਹ ਕਰਵਾਉਣ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਆਪਣਾ ਕੰਪਨਸੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਕਲੇਮ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਭਾਰਤੀ ਮਾਤਾ ਤੋਂ ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਵਾ ਹਾਂਜੀ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, if John has made these allegations, yeah, I think what happened was, if I remember correctly, Dakuji, a lot of money was paid by Indian government and Canadian government to cover up their to cover up their misses, and I don't know if there was an insurance company involved. But I do know that a good amount of money was paid by the Indian government as well as the Canadian government. But that's an interesting one. If the insurance,
ਉਹ ਕਾਲੇ ਪੈਸੇ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਆਮ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੀ ਆ ਫਲਾਈਟਾਂ ਦਾ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੀ ਆ ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਜਿਸ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਨੇ ਕੀਤੇ ਹੋਏ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਰਹੀ ਹੋਊਗੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਵੱਡਾ ਧੱਕਾ ਲੱਗਾ ਹੋਣਾ ਨਾ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਕਹਿ ਰਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਦੋ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਘੇਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਨਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੋਰ ਕੇ ਖੋਲ ਕੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੋ ਇਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਸ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਜ ਦੇਖੋ ਨਾ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਬੈਨੀਫਿਟ ਦੁਆਰਾ ਮਿਲੂਗਾ ਨਾਲੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨੁਕਸਾਨ ਹੋਇਆ ਆ ਸਾਕ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਹੋਊਗਾ
yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one, actually. We should research who was the insurance company, and maybe they can sue the Canadian government for hiding information that they had about the
They
Indian.
should be compensated more then because they were compensated to remain silent.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. But that's an interesting lead. I'm going to research on that. Thanks, Dakuji. Okay, I want to kind of start wrapping up. I want to kind of, in the end, want to thank all the John, especially for what he has done. My huge respect. The Panth will remember him. We will also honor him. I hope, but I also want to appeal. I want to appeal to the Indians. I hope we get one Indian with a sense of pain, with a sense of
possible. Sting, can I make one point before we wrap up completely?
Go ahead, Captain.
I was going to say that the pattern of behavior that you may or may not have noticed, or other people may have or may not have noticed, once the Indian state believes it's succeeded in a plot, it tries to repeat it. They try to do the same thing over and over again. So they did the plot with the bombings of their own planes. Then they try and arrange for more bombings in Europe. They don't succeed there. They start to kill Sikh activists in the UK and Canada. They get away with it in these countries. And then they go and try it in the US and they get caught. Now, I think the US, someone said that the US is really the only ones that will stand against India in these kinds of activities. And I think that's all we really need is the US. These other countries are just a bunch of jokers, to be honest. I put a comment in the space basically just saying that India, the reason why these countries aren't going to do anything against India is because India is largely controlled by the City of London and the financiers and the insurance companies and those people, so they'll do their bidding. That's why you see India is nowhere in this equation with the Iran incident and events that are happening there. You see Pakistan there. The countries that have assembled around the United States at the moment, none of them are linked to the City of London in the way that these Commonwealth countries are. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Since the Bretton Woods, it's the City of London that ran trade and finance around the world, and that's changing. The US doesn't want that Bretton Woods agreement anymore. They've had enough of it. They want individual countries acting as with their own sovereignty, and I think part of that's going to end up in the breakup of India. And I think the US sees that it's a fake country created for administration, and it's a bad actor as far as the planet is concerned. So I just want to wrap it up there. Thanks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I want to thank everybody for coming today and participating. And if anybody wants to open a space to continue the conversation, I would highly There's another person who is just asking for speaker right now. But I think we're too late, friend Arya. We'll, maybe next time. But yeah, people who want to continue the conversation, you can probably open another space. I do want to urge everybody to retweet. I have made certain tweet threads on this, on John's revelations. Please retweet it as much as you can. If you have any links, any relatives in media, in Punjabi media and English media, please try to make a case with them that they should at least talk about John's revelations. Please, at the minimum, RT it multiple times. I'll try to do my best to do more spaces on this. But I think whatever we can do to get truth out, I think that helps. And so that's my request. Hope everybody can do their bit. You've already done a lot by coming here, spending so much time talking about this. But let's keep talking about Air India 182 until the Canadian government does not tell us what they already know. Thank you so much, everybody. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.